Hey all, and long time no see. I figure it's time we need to catch up because it's probably been several months since I've done a video and there's a lot going on. There's a lot to really keep you guys up to date on. And so I'm gonna do it a little differently. We're gonna head out today to Phorm. This is a local cars and caffeine that's sort of this whole idea of bringing in supercars. It's hosted by Phorm, and we are going to check that out today. And I'm gonna kind of run you guys through some of the stuff that we got going on today. So let's go ahead and get on the road. Now before we get to the car, which there's a lot of cover on that, I'll get you kind of up to speed why I'm behind on things. It's just, you know, life's crazy. There's a lot going on. You've got family to take care of, try to spend time with my kids. I've been working a lot of my career. That's actually been primary focus. I've been getting certified and stuff. The big thing has been trying to get certifications and get my portfolio up to date. I've been going further into user experience, trying to focus more on product development, things along those lines. I'm almost complete with my certification for project management. That's be really helpful for what I do. Trying to be more of a leader in my industry rather than just a specialist. So that's been taking a lot of time. And we're getting closer to being done. There's also been a little bit with game development and things like that, but there'll be a lot more to fill in on that when those projects are done. Just got back from the wilderness. As you could tell, I'm a little bit bushy. I was up in Yellowstone, and that was quite the adventure. I'll show you guys a little bit of what I saw up there, but honestly, I want to take my kids up there while there's still opportunity. We definitely have to think about the conservation of our national parks and resources. These are things I got to experience when I was a kid, and my kids finally got to experience them, and I hope that someday theirs do. I know there's been lots of talk of people selling the land and taking away the federal ownership of these things and selling them for mineral rights and drilling oil, and I hope that's not the case. There's plenty of places to dig and drill. We need to protect our national parks because they're just beautiful. But we got to go up to Yellowstone, Sioux Falls, Custer National Park, Soul Faithful, the canyons, all kinds of great geological things, the massive active volcano that's essentially Yellowstone, and just all kinds of cool things along the way. We also hit up Badlands. That's a really neat spot. Almost feels like you're on another planet. But like I said, it was really great. It was a good couple weeks. I got to spend with my kids. We did 4,300 miles in a rental car, and it's something that they'll never forget, and I hope that generations to come will get to experience that. But anyway, we're heading to Phorm today. What that is just pretty much the most epic local cars and coffee kind of event. They call it Cars and Caffeine. They're going to bring out some exotics. This is a, I believe, Redwood themed event, so we'll see if there's any cool stuff there. Typically, like last time they brought out a Valkyrie, some really high-end cars, and there's Bugattis. I mean, not my favorite car, but it's still cool to finally see one in person. But of course, I'm gonna get excited about some of the weird stuff there. So there'll probably be plenty of RX-7s and Supras and JDM stuff, but then also some weird like Lancia, old European things as well. So we'll check that out. This will be definitely something cool to see. I'm sure there's plenty of cars out here that I missed, but I saw a lot of great ones, and this is a handful that I absolutely love. Of course, I'm always happy to see Supras and RX-7s here, and there are quite a few on display. There was an ST205 Gtfour, and of course this Gulf Blue GT40 right next to an awesome R34 Skyline with one of the best Volk wheels ever made. Now there's a few cars here that I'd never seen in person before, and that was what I was most excited about. The Carrera GT and a Ferrari F40. There were also 3 Ford GTDs on site. Really cool car. Never thought I'd ever see one outside of someone's museum or personal collection. Of course, last but not least, we've got this awesome 80s Honda right next to an IS 500. But it was a great showing, but now it's time to get back to the garage and get moving on this car. All right, back to the garage so we can get started on the car. But before we get into that, I got one more Gtfour to get into. And while I was on the trip, my son's really been wanting his own Gtfour, and we were in Omaha. There was a really cool hobby town that had like multiple buildings of road courses for RC cars, and they happen to have this. Now, they had the one that's unpainted. I would have liked to have a white one to do with Raleigh decals, or to make silver like mine. However, my son, he loves the red SD185s. So we're gonna paint it red for him. Funny enough, he and my daughter both prefer the 185 to the 205. They think the dual headlights is kind of weird. They prefer the pop-up. So either they got good taste or I don't know what. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the car and catch you guys up about what's been going on. I want to keep this low mileage engine running for a long time. So the plan is to keep it cooling right and leak free. I also want all the aging plastic gone before they get brittle on me. Before I can get all these new parts installed, I need to start getting all these other parts stripped off, starting with the clutch. With the clutch cover off, I can see the state of my flywheel. The blue color on here shows some signs of overheating. I pretty clearly remember a couple of autocross events where I cooked the clutch. I actually had to let off for a moment to get it to cool down enough so I could keep going during the race. But to reuse this, it's gonna need resurfacing or even replacing. But since I have a Pendenza flywheel, I'm gonna give it a shot. I was debating it for a while, but ultimately, I have it, I think it'll be good, and if I decide I don't like it down the road, I can always switch to something else. I have heard mixed reviews, but I've driven 2 all-tracks with the lighter flywheel, and honestly, it's not bad. I think because it's not going to be a massive weight drop, it won't be as dramatic as with some other cars. Next, I want to remove things so I can do the sills and the new belt. First, I want to loosen all the associated bolts for the cam gears and crank. Truman Priest loaned me this socket to get the crank bolt off. It really made short work of the bolt. With everything loosened, I'm marking my belts and cam gears for reference in case things get moved while working. I also made sure I lined up the cams on the inside and the crank to the marks listed in the BGB. I tried to get a loaner tool to get this crank pulley off. It was much harder to find one locally than I expected. Some local auto stores discontinued the brand they carried, and they were missing pieces, and so I had to wait for them to get one in my area. And eventually I just ended up buying an AutoZone branded one, and it did the job well enough. Getting off the water pump took a little effort. And once I did, I realized I want to place the gaskets in it as well. The main reason I took it off was to make the hose from hell easier to do, plus I want to clean the housing up good for the new water pump. The hose from hell was not too terrible, but it was not fun either. I could not imagine doing them while the engine was in the car. Now, taking off the oil cooler would have made it a lot easier. However, that would be another gasket I would have to buy to put it back on. Now to clean up all the bits on the engine that were underneath all these parts. I want to take care of any oil or grime and make this thing a nice clean surface to start with. So with all that work done, I thought I was ready to start putting the engine together. Then I had a prime incident, you might say. So I have my water pumps here. This is what I'd gotten from a vendor who I'd contacted when I first did this engine about the correct water pump for this engine. And they said they'd done this for 23 years, and first, second, and third gens all use the exact same water pump. The 205 is no different. Well, once I got my pump out there, we actually saw there is a difference. And you can see here the differences between the two. We have a stamped impeller on here on the first second, third, fourth, fifth gen ASIN water pump, and then we have a resin wheel over here on the 205 water pump. With that said, the only water pump that is different is the 205. The actual third gen MR2 uses the traditional water pump. Now, having done research, it does fit. The second gen water pump does fit the third gen housing. But based on what I've read, there could be some cavitation issues with the flow, may not be as efficient. Some theorize it actually caused some failure between cylinder heads 2 and 3. We don't know. But rather than risk it, cooling is very important to me. I'd rather do it right. And so I tracked down a pump, and had I not been told, almost 2 years ago that this was the correct pump, I would have been on the hunt for the other pump right away. Well, as I started reaching out to Japanese vendors and people in the UK and Germany and everywhere else, people that thought they had it in stock did not. They were actually sold out and finding that they were discontinued. Luckily, Gtfour Play had the hookup. He had what was likely the last new ST205 pump on the market. Now, long term, that does raise some concerns. Now, if I could not find any pump, I think the better option would be to switch out the entire water housing. And I think that could probably be efficient enough rather than trying to jam this second gen pump into a third gen 205 housing. However, my old pump's still good. The only reason I was swapping it is because I was already in there and I don't have to do it later. That pump has somewhere around 30,000 kilometers on it. It still has some life in it. So I'm gonna store it, I'm gonna put it away. It's gonna be my backup. This pump is like 20 something years old. It's actually pretty good that it's already lasted that long. I assume this next pump will get me that long as well. So when it finally goes, I've got the backup, and we'll do another video on this if it's successful, but I may have another source for some options for the 205 pump, but we'll have to stay tuned on that. So anyway, this is where we're at now. We've got everything apart. Most of the block's clean. I'm gonna do a little bit more cleanup here and there. Then I'm gonna start installing everything. And so that's what's coming next. I'll be installing, getting the engine ready to get back in the car so I can get it in the car as soon as possible and make sure this is all done right. So thanks for sticking with me. We've been, quite an adventure day. I've caught you guys back up. We saw some awesome cars, checked out some things I had done over the past several months. But now it's the next stage is to get things together so I can start enjoying this car because the year will be over before I know it. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.